It was raining so hard that night that the whole street looked like a river, and in the middle of that rain, standing at a rusty iron gate with nothing but a small bag and a sleeping child pressed against her chest, was a woman. Not a beggar, not a stranger. This was her home. Her name was on the water bill. Her hands had cooked every meal inside that house for 6 years, and yet the gate was locked against her. Her name was Amna. She was 32 years old. She was thin, and she was soaked to the bone, and the child on her shoulder, her 4-year-old daughter, little Ada, had her tiny fingers curled tight into her mother's wet blouse. Ada was sleeping. Children sleep even through the worst storms. But Amna was not sleeping. Amna was shaking not from the cold. From what had just happened, she had walked into her own bedroom 15 minutes ago and found another woman sitting on Erbit, wearing her husband's shirt, laughing. And her husband, Marcus, had stood up from that bed and looked at Amna, not with shame, not with guilt, but with something far worse. He had looked at her with relief, like she had finally arrived, so he could say the thing he had been waiting to say. "I want you out," he said. Tonight, Amna had opened her mouth. No sound came out. "I," said Tonight. "Amna, take the child and go." She had looked at the woman on the bed. The woman looked away, but she did not leave. That told Amna everything. And so now she stood at the gate, in the Rayang, with Ada on her shoulder and 5 years of her life packed into one small bag. She had nowhere to go. Her mother was in a village 200 kilometers away. She had no money for a bus. She had no phone. Marcus had taken it from the house contract, and he had cancelled her line the moment she stepped outside. She had nothing. The rain fell harder. A car drove past and splashed dirty water across her legs. She didn't even flinch. She looked down at Ada's sleeping face. The little girl's eyelashes were wet. Amna adjusted her grip and pulled the child closer. And in that moment, in that cold and dark and terrible moment, something happened. A black car, long, quiet, and very expensive, slowed down at the edge of the road. Then it stopped completely. Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe too, so you never miss a story like this one. Now, to understand what happened next, you need to understand who Amna was, not just the woman standing in the rain. The woman before the rain had grown up in a small house with a zinc roof in a town where the roads turned to mud every rainy season. Her father had driven a taxi. Her mother had sold ground nuts and smoked fish at the market. They were not poor in spirit. They were rich in that way, but there was never enough money. Amna had studied by candlelight more nights than she could count. She had won a scholarship to the city university. She had graduated with a degree in accounting, second in her class. Then she had met Marcus. Marcus was charming. He had a job at a logistics company and wore pressed shirts every day. He had told Amna she was the most intelligent woman he had ever met. He had told her that with her brain and his connections, they would build something great together. Amna had believed him. Why wouldn't she? She was in love. She was hopeful. They married quickly. Ada came the following year. And then, slowly, almost without Amna noticing, things began to change. Marcus started coming home late. He stopped asking about her work. He told her that her accounting job was embarrassing, that his wife should not be working under somebody else. He convinced her to quit and manage the home. She did it for him, for Ada, for the family she believed they were building. She gave up her career. She gave up her independence. She gave up everything, piece by piece, until she had nothing left. That was hers alone. And then he threw her into the rain. Now the black car that had stopped inside, that car sat a man named Daniel, Prince Daniel Ademi. To be exact, though he did not like the title used in casual company, it was 36 years old. And he was the only son of one of the wealthiest families in the country. His father's construction company had built 3 major highways and a university. Daniel himself had spent 10 years in London studying engineering before returning home 80 months ago to take over the family business. He was handsome in a quiet way, not the loud, showy type of handsome, the type that you noticed slowly, the steadiness of his eyes, the stillness of how he carried himself. He drove himself most nights because he hated the feeling of being watched. His driver was off duty. Daniel was coming back from a late meeting, alone, and he had taken a back road to avoid traffic. That was the only reason he was on this street. That was the only reason. He saw her. He saw Amna through his windscreen, a woman in the rain, holding a sleeping child, standing absolutely still in front of a locked gate. And something made him stop his car. He could not explain it later. He just stopped. He lowered his window. The rain hit his face. He looked at her. "Madame," he said. "Are you all right?" Amna turned slowly. She looked at the car. She looked at the man inside. And then, because she was too tired to pretend, she said the truth. "No," she said. "I am not all right." Daniel stepped out of the car. He had an umbrella in the back seat, and he opened it over her head before she could say a word. The rain drummed on the black fabric. Amna looked at him the way a person looks at something they don't quite believe is real. "What happened?" he asked simply. "My husband locked me out," she said. Her voice was flat. She had no energy left for drama. "He wants me gone. Tonight?" Daniel looked at the gate. He looked at the house behind it, a decent house, middle class, with lights on in the upstairs window. Then he looked at the child on her shoulder. Ada shifted in her sleep and made a small sound, like a bird. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Don't know," Amna said. "Do you have family in the city?" "No." "Do you have money?" A long pause. "No." Daniel was quiet for a moment. The rain was very loud. He made a decision. "Come," he said. "I will take you somewhere safe tonight." Amna stepped back. She held Ada tighter. "I don't know you," she said. She was scared. Of course, she was scared. A strange man, a big car, a dark road. What woman in her right mind would not be scared? "You are right," Daniel said. "You do not know me. My name is Daniel Ademi. You can call my assistant right now. I will give you the number, and she will confirm who I am. You can also take a photo of my car plate. I am not asking you to trust me. I am asking you to get your child out of the rain." Because Amna looked at the car plate, and she recognized the name on the small business card Daniel was holding out to her, Adeyemi Construction. She had seen that name before. On the plaque at Ada's nursery school, they were the company that had built the school's new building. There was a photograph of the Adeyemi family in the lobby. She had walked past it every morning for 2 years. She knew the face. She looked at Daniel. She looked at the card. She looked at her sleeping daughter. She took the card. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay." Daniel opened the back door of the car. Amna got in carefully, adjusting Ada so the child lay across her lap, still sleeping. Daniel walked around to the driver's side. He did not ask more questions. He drove. But as Amna sat in the warmth of that car, something moved in her chest. Not relief, not yet. Something more like confusion, because the card in her hand had an address printed on it. Adeyemi House, Victoria State, Plot 1. She knew that address. She had typed it once on a document 2 years ago when she was still working at the accounting firm. A financial document, a transaction record. She had typed Marcus's name on that same document. She frowned. She looked at the card again. She thought, and then the thought disappeared because Ada woke up and whispered "Mama" in that tiny, sleepy voice, and Amna pressed her lips to her daughter's head and said, "I am here, baby. I am here." But the thought did not go away entirely. It sat at the back of her mind like a door left slightly open. Why had Marcus's name been connected to the Adeyemi estate? What had that document been for? Daniel drove Amna to a small, clean guest house that was owned by his company, a place used for visiting business partners. He arranged a room for her. He told the woman at the front desk to give Amna and Ada whatever they needed. He paid for 3 nights in advance without being asked. Amna watched him do all of this. She said, "Why are you helping me?" Daniel paused. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said, "and because you were standing in the rain with a child, and no one else was stopping." He left his assistant's number with Amna and told her to call in the morning if she needed anything. Then he drove away into the rain. Amna sat on the edge of the clean hotel bed with Ada now fully awake and eating crackers from a packet. The front desk woman had brought. The room smelled of fresh linen and air conditioning. Amna had not slept in a room this quiet in years. She should have been grateful. She was grateful. But her mind kept returning to that thought, that name, that document. She remembered it now more clearly. 2 years ago, she had been an accountant at a mid-size firm. A client file had crossed her desk. A land transaction, a transfer of title, deeds for a large plot of land in the city outskirts. The buyer's agent was a company called MK Logistics and Property, MK Marcus Kalu, her husband's initials. His private company, which she had always been told, was just a small side business. The seller of that land, Adamia Estates. She had processed the transaction. She had not thought about it deeply then. Now she thought about it very deeply. She did not sleep that night. The next morning, she called Daniel's assistant, a calm, efficient woman named Rose, and said she needed to ask Daniel one question. Rose said she would pass the message. 20 minutes later, Daniel called her directly. "You said one question," he said. There was a small amount of warmth in his voice. "Yes," Amna said. 2 years ago, did your company sell a plot of land in the Okafor district outskirts? A large plot to an agent called MK Logistics. The line was quiet for 3 full seconds. "How do you know about that?" Daniel said. Amna told him about the transaction she had processed. Daniel was very still on the other end of the phone. Then he said, "Can you meet me today?" To? They met at his office that afternoon, a tall glass building in the business district. Ada sat in the corner of Daniel's conference room drawing pictures on paper his assistant had provided, and Amna sat across the table from Daniel and told him everything she remembered. Daniel listened without interrupting. Then he stood up and walked to a filing cabinet. He came back with a thick brown folder. He opened it on the table and turned it to face. "That plot of land," he said, "was sold for 800 million naira. The transaction was handled by MK Logistics. I was in London at the time. My father's deputy, a man named Harrison Bello, managed it." He paused. "The problem is that land was not our land to sell." Amna's eyes went wide. What? The land was part of a community trust. 40 families lived on it. It had been in their names for 30 years. Daniel's jaw was tight. 2 years ago, those families were removed. The documentation was falsified. Someone paid to make it look legitimate. He looked at her. Your husband's company received those documents. He was the agent on the other side. He knew exactly what he was buying. Amna sat back in her chair. The air conditioning hummed. Ada's crayon made soft scratching sounds on the paper. 40 families, removed from their land. And Marcus had known. "He never told me," she whispered. "He wouldn't," Daniel said quietly. That evening, Daniel sent his head of legal affairs, a sharp woman named Kioma, to speak with Amna privately. Kioma came with 2 things. A cup of tea she placed gently in front of Amna, and a name of a witness. "A woman named Mama Esther," Kioma said. "She was one of the 40 families. She is 63 years old. She lives in a church shelter now because she lost her home. She has been trying to get someone to listen to her case for 2 years. Amna met Mama Esther the following day. The old woman was small, with deep lines in her face and eyes that had shin too much. She sat with her hands folded in her lap and told Amna everything. "They came with papers," Mama Esther said. Her voice was slow and heavy, like stones dropping into still water. "They said the government needed the land. We were told to sign. Some of us refused. Those who refused their names appeared on the documents anyway. I don't know how, but our names were there. Did you ever see the agent? Amna asked. The man from MK Logistics? Mama Esther looked at her for a long moment. Then she reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a folded photograph. She placed it on the table between them. This man, she said. He came twice. He drove a blue car. He told us everything would be taken care of. Amna looked at the photograph Edouard Marcus. She did not cry. She had no tears left for Marcus, but she felt something cold move through her entire body, from her head to her feet, like easy water, poured down her spine. Kioma had done more digging by the next morning. She came to Amna with a single printed page. The woman Marcus is with now, Kioma said carefully. Her name is Victoria Osei. We checked. Victoria Osei Amna had not known her name until now. She repeated it in her head. Her family owns a property development company, Kioma continued. They needed that Okafor land for a shopping complex. MK Logistics, your husband's company, was their inside agent. He was paid 12 million naira in commission. That is why he did it. That is why 40 families lost their homes. She paused. And Victoria's family, they were the ones who introduced Marcus to the whole scheme. He met Victoria while working on this deal. They have been together for over a year. It all landed at once. The land fraud, the falsified documents, the families removed from their homes, the money, and then Victoria. He had sold 40 families for 12 million naira, and a woman, who came with the deal, pressed her hands flat on the table and breathed. He threw Ida and me into the rain, she said slowly, so that woman could sit on my bed. A woman whose family helped him commit a crime. Yes, Kioma said. That is what it looks like. That afternoon, Marcus called Amna on a borrowed phone. His voice was softer than it had been at the gate. He said he had been thinking. He said, perhaps they had moved too fast. He said, perhaps Amna and Ada could come back while they sorted things out properly. For one moment, just one, Amna felt the pull of the familiar. 6 years of marriage, the smell of that house in the morning, Ada knowing where her toys were, the ordinary life she had believed in. Then she remembered Mama Esther's face, the photograph, 40 families. No, Amna said. No, Marcos. She ended the call. But the complication came the next morning, when Kioma called with a very serious voice. Harrison Bello, she said, the deputy who managed the land sale from Daniel's side. He knows Amna has been speaking to us. He called our office this morning. A pause. He is threatening to say that Amna fabricated the documents, that she created a false transaction record when she was at the accounting firm. He is saying she is a criminal, not a witness. Amna felt the ground shift under her feet. They were going to make her the villain. Daniel moved quickly. He called Amna into his office, closed the door, and stood with his hands on his desk. Harrison Bello has been in my family's company for 20 years, he said. I trusted him like an uncle. His voice was steady, but his eyes were hard. He managed that sale while I was in London, which means either he was deceived or he was part of it. I did not fabricate anything, Amna said. She looked at him directly. I processed what was given to me. I can prove it. Every transaction I processed goes through a server log. The original document was submitted to our firm by MK Logistics. My senior partner at the time signed off on it. I only typed the numbers. Daniel nodded slowly. I know, he said. I believe you. He picked up his phone. Now I need to know which one Harrison Bello is. Deceived or dirty? He called Harrison directly, right there in front of Amna. Put the phone on speaker. Harrison's voice was smooth, assured. Daniel, my boy, I hear there has been some confusion about the Okafor transaction. No confusion, Daniel said. I have the original documentation. I have the witness testimony of 3 families. I have a transaction record from the accounting firm that processed the buyer's paperwork, and I have questions. A small silence. What kind of questions? Did you know those families' signatures were forged? A longer silence. That is a very serious accusation. It is a very serious question. Did you know? Harrison's voice changed. Just slightly. Just enough. I did what I was asked to do. Your father approved that sale. Daniel, I was carrying out instructions. Daniel's eyes went cold. He had not expected that answer. His father. My father approved it. Your father was in debt at the time. He needed liquidity. The Osse family offered a clean, fast deal. I was the one who managed the paperwork. I was told to make it work. A pause. I did what was necessary. Daniel, sometimes, to protect a great family, you do what is necessary. Daniel ended the call. He stood very still for a moment. The room was quiet. Amna watched him. Your father knew? She asked softly. I don't know, Daniel said. His voice was careful, controlled. I need to speak to him. The confrontation with Harrison Bello happened 2 days later in the formal boardroom of Adami Construction, with the company's legal team present and with Daniel sitting at the head of the table. Harrison arrived in his usual pressed suit, confident, carrying a leather briefcase. He stopped when he saw the lawyers. He stopped again when he saw Amna sitting to Daniel's right. What is this? Harrison said. Sit down, Harrison. Daniel said. Harrison sat. He put his briefcase on the table. He folded his hands. Whatever this woman has told you, I have not asked you about her yet, Daniel said. I have asked you. Here, about 43 forged signatures on a community trust document. I have the originals. I have a forensic handwriting report completed 2 days ago. Would you like to see it? He slid a folder across the table. Harrison did not open it. I managed that transaction under instructions, Harrison sighed. His voice was still smooth, still certain. I had authorization. From whom? From your father. I have already told you. Daniel leaned forward. My father signed no document approving the removal of those families. I have been through every file, every record. His signature does not appear on the community trust documents. He paused. Your signature does? Harrison's face did not change immediately. He was an old man who had spent decades managing other people's secrets. He knew how to wear a face, but something moved behind his eyes. Something small and quick, like a rat hearing a trap spring. He acted in the company's best interest, he said. You acted for money, Daniel said. The ASA family paid you privately. I have the bank records for payments, spread across 8 months. He stood up. You used my family's company to commit fraud. You destroyed 40 families, and when you were nearly discovered, you tried to destroy the one woman who could prove what you did. Now Harrison's composure cracked, just at the edges. You are making a very dangerous accusation. Boy, Daniel did not flinch. My name, he said quietly, is not Boy, and I am not making an accusation. I am reading a charge sheet. He picked up a document and held it out to the lead lawyer beside him. Harrison Bejo, effective today. You are suspended from this company, pending a full police investigation into land fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy. Security will escort you out. Harrison stood up. For one moment, he looked like he might speak. His mouth opened. Then he looked at Amna, and something in Amna's steady, tired eyes, something in the way she sat there, quiet and certain after everything she had been through, must have told him that there was nothing left to say. He picked up his briefcase. He walked to the door. At the door, he turned. I kept this company alive when your father was too proud to admit he was struggling, he said. Remember that? Daniel looked at him without blinking. The families you removed from their land had been there for 30 years, he said. They were alive long before your help was needed, and they will still be there after you are gone. Harrison left. If this story is moving you, please subscribe to right now, because the ending of this story will change how you see everything. What came next moved faster than Amna expected. Harrison Bello was arrested 14 days later. The evidence was clean, detailed, and impossible to argue with. The police investigation confirmed what Daniel's lawyers had already found: forged signatures, private payments, falsified government approvals. The Yusei family's role was exposed. Victoria's father, a man who had moved through the city for 20 years with the confidence of someone who had never been questioned, was named in the investigation. Warrants were issued, and Marcus, who had driven that blue car to the Lantuais. Marcus, whose company had received 12 million naira in commission. Marcus, who had thrown his wife and child into the rain because he was afraid that Amna, the accountant, the woman he had convinced to quit her job so she would be smaller and quieter, might one day put together what she had seen. He had been afraid of her mind even when she was not using it. Marcus was arrested on a Tuesday morning. Amna heard about it from Kioma, who called with the news in a calm, factual voice. Amna was sitting in the guest house with Ada, helping her. Daughter Kala, a picture of a house with a big tree and a red door and flowers in front. Ada did not know what was happening in the world outside. She just knew that lately her mother had been sitting straighter and breathing more slowly. They took him this morning, Kioma said. Okay, Amna said. Are you all right? Amna looked at Ada's drawing. The red door. The flowers? Yes, she said. I am all right. The full truth was confirmed publicly 3 weeks after that. A press statement from Adimi Construction announced an internal audit, the termination of Harrison Bello, and a commitment to compensate the 40 displaced families. Daniel gave a short press statement himself. Calm, precise, no drama, in which he said that the company had been used without his knowledge to facilitate fraud, and that he was personally committed to making it right. He did not mention Amna nay. She had asked him not to. But the Mama Esthers of this city, the older women in the shelters, and the small churches who had been praying and waiting for 2 years, they knew. They knew that the truth had come through a young woman who had been thrown into the rain with nothing. The word moved through the community like warmth moves through a cold room, quietly, from person to person, until everyone had felt it. 3 months after the night in the rain, Daniel came to the guest house in the evening. He had been visiting regularly. First on business, then just to check, then just because. Amna had noticed the shift but had not named it. He brought Ada a small cloth doll with a bright yellow dress. Ada grabbed it and ran immediately to the corner to introduce it to her other toys. Amna smiled, watching her daughter. Daniel sat across from Amna at the small table by the window. Outside, the city glittered with evening lights. It was not raining. The sky was very clear. Been thinking, Daniel said, about the accounting firm that let you go after the investigation made your name known. That was wrong. He paused. My company needs a head of internal financial audit. Someone precise, someone who cannot be bought. Someone who sees what other people miss. He looked at her. I am not doing this because I pity you. I am doing this because you are the most qualified person I know for this role. Amna was quiet for a long moment. You are serious, she said. I am always serious, he said. And then, very quietly, the ghost of a smile crossed his face. Just briefly. Mostly. Amna looked at Ada. Ada was now dressing the doll in an imaginary outfit, making serious fashion commentary to herself in a small, important voice. Amna looked back at Daniel. Okay, she said. I will take the job. What happened between Amna and Daniel in the months that followed was not the loud kind of thing. It was the quiet kind, the kind that builds like a house, one careful brick at a time, in good weather and bad, until one morning you look up and realize you are standing somewhere warm and solid and real. and you cannot quite remember a time when you were not. 1 year later, the guest house was a memory. Amna and Ada lived in a clean, bright apartment in a good neighborhood. Not enormous, not showy, but there's a home that Amna had chosen herself, paid for with her own salary, decorated with her own hands. Ada had a room painted soft yellow, with a bookshelf full of picture books and a window that looked out over a garden. She went to a new nursery school where she had 3 best friends and a teacher who said she had the biggest questions of any child in the class. Amna walked into the Adimi construction building every morning at 8 o'clock with her badge around her neck and her briefcase in her hand. She had rebuilt her accounting credentials. She had passed 3 professional examinations in 9 months. She was leading an audit team of 7 people. Her colleagues respected her. Her boss, Daniel, trusted her completely. There were mornings when she passed the Adami family photograph in the lobby, the one that showed Daniel's father, old and dignified, in a formal suit, and she would pause for just a moment. Daniel's father had not known about the fraud. The investigation had cleared him, but it had also revealed his old financial struggles, the secrets he had carried alone, and the people who had taken advantage of those secrets. He was an old man now, quieter than before. He had sat with Amna once in Daniel's office and said, in a voice that cost him something, "I am sorry for what was done in my company's name." Amna had nodded. She had said, "I know. C'est ad. Not forgiven, Marcus." She had not made the call to forgive, but she had let it go. There is a difference. Forgiveness lives inside the chest. Letting go means opening your hand and releasing what was never yours to carry. Marcus was awaiting trial. His company was dissolved. Victoria's family business was under investigation. Victoria herself had quietly left the city. The apartment in the nice neighborhood, the one Amna had once cleaned and cooked in and believed in, had been seized as part of the fraud recovery. Marcus was living with a distant cousin somewhere. He had sent a letter once to Amna, asking about Ada. Amna had given it to her lawyer. Mama Esther was back in a house. It was a new house, not the same one. That land was still caught in legal process, but a proper house, in a safe place, with a little garden for her groundnut seedlings. The compensation fund that Daniel had established had reached 2 of the 40 families in the first year. The remaining 12 would in process. Mama Esther had come to Amna's office once unannounced and placed a small tin of homemade cookies on her desk without saying a word. Then she had patted hand twice and left. Amna had eaten every single cookie. As for Daniel, well, that is a different story for a different day. What Amna knew was this. Every evening when she picked up Ada from school, her daughter ran to her with her arms wide open, and Amna would catch her and hold her, and the weight of that small body in her arms was the weight of everything that mattered. She had lost a house. She had lost a marriage. She had been thrown into the rain with nothing. But she had walked out of that rain into her own life, fully. Fina, completely her own. And no one would ever lock that gate again. The woman who had been thrown into the rain had not been broken by the storm. She had simply been watered, and from the mud of that terrible night, something patient and strong and quietly unstoppable had begun to grow. There is a saying the elders use in my village: when the wicked push the righteous into darkness, they do not know that the righteous carry their own light. Amna knew now, finally. Shini, thank you so much for joining us for this story. Friends, if Amna's journey moved your heart today, please subscribe to and click the bell so you never miss a story like this one. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that storms do not last forever. And watch our next story right here. It is waiting for you. Take care of yourselves, friends. Until next time.